Welcome, everybody. I'm finally back, my first show in 2020, and I'm excited today to bring on a special guest, a fellow organizer, and we are going to talk about what does it mean to be organized enough. So if you're watching on the replay, feel free to make comments and we will come back and answer them. And if you're joining us live, feel free to ask questions as you go along. I'm going to bring Tricia in now. I just added you before. There you are, you're live. Yay. So welcome.
Thank you.
It's so funny because the picture that I put up, the profile pictures that I put up of you, you're so tan and I'm so white. Now I'm like, I don't have my lighting and I'm like, I know.
I know. As you know, this is a new webcam for me, so I have no idea how this whole lighting thing works.
No, it looks good though. The camera is good, which is good, always a good thing. My daughter's on a photo shoot. My daughter's on a photo shoot, so she took all her lights with her. So I'm in front of a window. So, whatever works, right? Exactly. So I'm so glad you joined me, or joined us, I should say. Hopefully people will join. I have to remember to go back into the comments so that I can, I'm in the comments, so I can see them as they come in. So do you want to just tell, maybe, I guess, just quickly introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Tricia Nelson. My company name is Finally Functional Home Organizing, and I've been at this for just about 5 years now. So I've learned so very much in this amount of time. I work primarily with residential clients. I'm super hands-on, and I absolutely love the creative challenge of kind of going in and customizing solutions to people's individual needs.
Yes.
It's such fulfilling work. I absolutely love it. So my clients range from, some of my clients are little people, little kids. Parents will sometimes have me work one-on-one with them to set up strategies and so forth, usually in a playroom, all the way to elderly people who are downsizing and just looking for some help and support and guidance and navigating that whole process.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I didn't realize that you worked with children. So for those of you that know, Tricia she lives a town away from me. So when I took my business all online, and even before that, I would refer people to other organizers, and she's one of my people that I refer to because of what you said. You customize everything. And when you said you wanted to talk about today about what does organized mean enough, I was like, yes, because that is something I've never put it in those words, but when you said it, I knew exactly what you were talking about. So that's good. And I love that you said that you're hands-on, because that's something that I always loved doing. And I had to take a step back from that. So it's nice to be able to have that resource, because some people physically need somebody there working with them and getting things done.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yes. We're in closets and garages and basements and pantries and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's a book labeled Organized Enough by Amanda Sullivan. It's a really good read. I would recommend it to anybody. It was just out in 2017.
Okay.
So it's phenomenal. And it's funny, as you know, a lot of times as an organizer, you'll read other organizer books and you'll be like, of course, yeah, I get that. And so none of it feels like rocket science to you. Right. But it resonates with you in so many levels. And sometimes you'll have your aha moment where you're like, that's it. But I realized as I was reading this, I was like, I think this has always been my philosophy in life. And, life is hard. Life is busy. It's just, it's difficult to keep up with everything there is. And so the more you can put in place to facilitate that, the better off you'll be, the less stressed you'll be for sure.
Right.
And, like organized enough, I would say is kind of like, for example, you see things on Pinterest where people are color coding things or sorting their socks in a drawer in neat rows and so forth. And we see these things and sometimes we'll feel like, wow, what's wrong with me? I can't do this.
Exactly.
Even as an organizer, I don't hold myself to these standards by any means.
Yeah,
If you can get
exactly.
all your socks in a drawer and you can see them all pretty much, hey, great. It's a victory. It's a win.
Right. Exactly. I use that socks thing a lot of times because my husband, who's super organized, he's been, he's a lot older than Marie Kondo, and he's been folding his socks like her since before she was born. And he's always been that way. Like he has to line them up and match them and have them. And
Mhm.
I'm just ball and throw them in the drawer. You know what I mean? And people just, and I always say that. I'm like, it just whatever works for you. And I mean, that makes him, that's the way he has to do it. It doesn't bother him. It's just the way he does it, and it feels good for him, and it works. And he's always like, "Oh, I don't know how you can stand that." I'm like, "Because I just pull out what I need, and I'm good. Why would I take the extra time to do something that doesn't matter to me, really?"
I
You know?
agree,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I
yeah,
find that as an organizer, those are the kind of things that you're kind of going in while you're customizing for people. Oftentimes, you're giving them permission to let certain things just let it go.
yes,
There's no need for you to do that. It's probably more important to be overall functional and be
exactly.
able to find what you need to get out the door in the morning, pay your bills on time,
Hmm.
keep your house stocked with what you need, inventory, food. These are the very high level things
Right,
that
exactly.
just keep your home functional and keep you sane, basically.
Exactly,
I
exactly.
know.
And when you talked about the Pinterest thing, I think what happens is there's a lot of people that are organized that want to go to that next level, and that's a lot of what you see. You see people, the people that are putting out these things that are great and organized, they're people that that's just natural for them, and they love it, and they, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to function for everybody, but people, like you say, people see it and they're like, "Oh, I wish I could do that," or why, why can't I do that? Like, because it's just not for everybody. Yeah,
True, true.
yeah.
I know. And it can be lovely to sit and look at a row of matching baskets and, perfectly labeled pantries.
Hmm.
I think it's great. But I find that some people can take that to such an extreme because I have a wide range of clients.
Hmm.
And, they are super organized, but they just want that aesthetic to look beautiful.
Right.
Um, but I always kind of try to bring them back down to earth sometimes because maybe it's a beautiful container, but boy, is it difficult to open.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, this looks great, but it's going to be very difficult to maintain. So those are some of the conversations
Right.
where you try to find a happy medium for some people
Hmm.
um,
Exactly.
that they
Yeah.
can live with, or they'll sometimes, I'm super practical. Workflows are so important to me.
Hmm.
And I try to really reinforce that with folks
Hmm.
to think through what you're using in a space, what needs to be accessible, what doesn't need to be accessible. Can you
Exactly.
sometimes create secondary storage? I do this with a lot of clients. Secondary storage, maybe if you have a basement that's nice enough, you put up a shelving unit and you put those giant platters you pull out once a year or something.
Hmm. Right.
Just really, it's fun to look at each individual space and come up with solutions.
Yep.
Um, and a lot of it is, I really find like so many of us, so we're always questioning ourselves. Am I doing this well enough? Am I good
Hmm.
enough? And
Right.
um, a lot of it is just validation that, it really is okay to not be perfect.
That's
And
it. Like
it,
letting go of perfectionism, and that's a hard one for people.
it's
It's
so
been a hard
hard.
one for me. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I was the mom who, my girls had like like this one bag of blocks that had 150 blocks in it. And at the end of every day, I would count and make sure all 150 blocks were back in. This was early on when they were really little.
Wow.
And I had everything sorted, like
Mhm.
because my life was so organized before kids. And when they came along, I was like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" And so I kept up doing what I would do for myself, for
Yeah.
them, and it just became completely not maintainable, So I had to train myself to really, really let go of it, which was big. Now
Motherhood, motherhood is so humbling.
it is. And now the girls are like, "What happened to you?" I'm like, it's called age, and I just don't let that stuff bother me anymore. I just do what I need to do. I'm organized enough, as you say. I
Yeah.
can find everything. It may not be neat and perfect, but I can find everything. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's funny.
Yes. And I know. And I'm a big fan of like the 10-minute sweep at the end of the day and just going and kind of putting things like realistic things without losing your mind.
Right, right.
And even if it's just kind of getting a stack at the foot of the stairs that maybe tomorrow goes up or,
Hmm.
whatever it may be.
Right.
But I can so relate to that kid thing. I used to have when my kids were little, I had this playroom. It was set up like a preschool. It was like insane.
Hmm.
It had zones. We had a music area. We had a
Oh
reading area.
yeah.
We had
Yeah.
puzzles, the little wooden puzzles and all
Yeah.
that. And it looked great. But I look back and I was like, I was a lunatic. Like
Yeah.
I did what you did. I was putting it back together every night, getting
Yeah.
everything, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And those zones are really good for them, but it's
yes,
that line. Where do you draw the line? Okay, we're going to do our best. We're not going to be crazy and get it all together. We still want to have those zones because it teaches them and it's good for them. And my girls were really good about putting things back. It was when we would have other people over, I'd have to put everything away because such a phenomenon that I see so many kids like to grab a container and fill it with miscellaneous things, and my kids never did that. So I'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" So I would minimize the amount of toys that were out when they had a play date because I knew myself. I'm like, this is not going to be good.
yes,
Yeah,
it's too overwhelming.
yeah, exactly.
I know. And looking
Yeah.
back, I could have gotten rid of probably 70% of the toys they had in the
Hmm.
rotation. But I'm number 7 out of 8 children in my family.
Oh wow.
So by the time I had kids, I had a lot of hand-me-downs,
Yeah,
which was wonderful. But at the same time, it could be an issue. So I did
yeah.
try to purge and move things along.
Hmm.
It's an interesting stage in your life.
Hmm.
And it
But
can be
that's the
so
thing. It's a
challenging.
stage, and that's the thing that was always my biggest lesson. Thing for people. Your
Mhm.
kids they're gonna grow up, and all of this stuff is gonna go away because everyone always wants to say their kids are hoarders, and I'm like, don't ever say that, especially to them, because they're
Yeah.
not. They're just exploring and they're figuring out what they like and what they want to keep, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be this way forever.
Not at all.
Yeah. But when you're in it, it's a lot harder to remind yourself of that.
I
Once you're
know.
past it, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, new
For
stage.
sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
Another thing I found humbling, even having, I have a lot of chronically disorganized clients,
Hmm.
a lot of people with executive functioning issues, a lot of ADD.
Hmm.
And so I find a lot of the solutions we come up with are so not Pinterest worthy, but
Yeah,
they're doable and
exactly.
they improve the quality of a person's life. And that's always just like, setting your goals. What do we want to accomplish here?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
you really want to be able to find what you need when you need it,
Hmm.
and go do what you need to do in the world. Win,
Exactly. Yeah.
make it win.
And it's funny that you say that about the because I always say put function before beauty. If you get to
Yeah.
a point where that function is so ingrained in you, then you can make things look good. Because people would always say, "Well, do you have any before and after pictures?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but they don't really tell a story. All they'll show is maybe a clean surface, but it doesn't tell you the whole story of now what's going on, what the process is. So it's more of what is the daily thing happening around that space. The actual space itself doesn't matter, really. I mean,
It's true.
you know,
It's true. That's
yeah,
funny you say that because I always beat myself up. I'm not really good about posting before and afters and things of that nature.
yeah, yep,
Half the
same.
time I'll get halfway through a job with a client. I'm like, oh, we probably should have taken it before, huh?
Yeah. Well, I had before and after pictures on my website for years, and they
Mhm.
were from various clients. It's hard to get a client to want to do that anyways because it's such a personal thing.
It
But
is.
but also I would look at them and I would say, yeah, I could have just literally gone like that, swept everything off that desk and took a picture. So really, to me,
It's
it
so
didn't.
true.
But it
Yeah.
is funny how people want to see that. They want to see that
Mhm.
before and after. So it's a kind of an interesting balance of, I'd rather show you the before and after of the person than the space, how they
I
felt
love
before
that.
as how they feel now. That tells me much more than anything, because the space could be clear and then a week later it could be, back to the way it was, because we
Mhm.
all know that happens too. I mean, people backslide
Absolutely.
and
Mhm.
they may need adjustments, or they just may need more time to implement the routines that,
Exactly.
they
Or
look
you
for.
just need to tweak what the routine is sometimes.
Yep.
It's not. I know, and that's what I'll say to people. We're gonna try this, and we're gonna evaluate and see how it's working, and then
Hmm.
report back and see which aspects of the system are working for you and which ones are just you're not gonna do,
Right.
and just be
Yeah.
realistic about it.
Hmm.
Sure. I
Yeah.
know. So the majority of your clients, do you deal with a lot with paper?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it was interesting. So I've been in business for 13 years. So the
Yeah.
first probably, 8 years, I was dealing with a lot of moms.
Mhm.
And then I somehow transitioned to a lot of people who had lost loved ones. And I loved that work, but it's hard. I mean, it was really
Yes.
hard, and so that transitioned into a lot of paperwork, because when people lose a loved one, that's oftentimes the biggest struggle for them, is dealing with the paper and all the stuff. And so I started doing that. And then I started, I'm a former accountant too. So, I mean, that was my wheelhouse. So I started helping people with that. And then I started helping businesses. And then it really evolved into, the whole reason I started my business is because I was running two home-based businesses and I had kids. So it's really
Mhm.
evolved back into, now I help the people that I was in the very beginning. The business owner who is actually taking care of kids at the same time, and
Yes.
working from in the home. So that's really my ideal client, is somebody who works from home,
Mhm.
and whether they have children or not, but they're in their home, because it's hard. It's a hard
It's
thing to
hard.
do. With me being an organizer, it's, when I was leaving the house, it wasn't as hard because I was going to clients and coming back. So there wasn't a lot here. Now that I'm here, I see it even more again, back to where I was in the beginning when I was doing other businesses. So yeah,
Sure.
that's really where I find, I can be the most valuable at this point in my life. I feel like I did all the physical stuff, and now I like to do it all virtual and more coaching than actually the hands-on. Even though I love the hands-on, I know there's going to come a point where I'm just not going to be able to do it anymore,
Mhm.
physically.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I think that's probably a concern for a lot of us.
mhm.
How to still reach out and help people and change their lives, yet
Mhm.
still make it sustainable for your body.
Yes, exactly,
I
for
know I
sure.
try to mix things up between paper jobs and maybe some things with heavy lifting and assembling shelving, and
Yep.
so it's
Yeah.
it's truly a balance.
Yeah, I do.
Um,
I always found, though, that even doing paper with people in person, that was grueling for me, because a lot of times I'd be working on floors, because there
yeah,
wasn't surfaces, so I'd be sorting on the floor, so even that was kind of a physical, depending on the, people. I mean, I had people with, 60 years worth of paper that they had to let go of, but you can't just
wow,
toss it all, right? Because you just don't know what's in
exactly.
there. And yeah, so sorting through all of that was interesting. But yeah.
Mhm. Yes, it's a long, arduous process, and
Hmm.
you want to be very respectful of everything that's there and make sure that it's been processed physically, mentally, emotionally, and
Hmm.
nurture people through that process. So that it can be super rewarding, but also super draining.
Hmm.
I know.
Definitely. There's a lot of self-care that needs to go on when you're dealing, because I know this, we're all so different. So a lot of organizers, just, they're doing jobs, they're not necessarily working with the chronically disorganized, or the person who's physically, handicapped, or they're elderly, or they've got the extreme ADD or dysfunction. And when you're working with more of those clients, it's definitely more draining. I mean, it's not just, hey, we're going to go in, like, I would, like you said, I would sprinkle in the person who just wanted their kitchen done, because that's light and easy and airy. There's no sentiment, unless they had some sentimental stuff, but it's more of
Right.
a just, hey, let's just make your kitchen functional. there's no there's no emotion really attached to that usually. So bringing those light
True.
and airy jobs, which are fun,
Absolutely.
but yeah,
Absolutely. That's
yeah,
why it's funny, even after 5 years, I don't think I have, like, people always say, what is your ideal client? I love the variety. And for that
yeah,
reason, I
yeah,
like mixing things up. I find
mhm,
it great. And my clients have taught me so much and humbled me so much in terms of checking my expectations and ego at the door.
mhm,
And that's kind of where that whole being organized enough comes in,
right,
where it's not what I think should work in your home at all, really
exactly,
ever. I mean, I'm there to
100%,
guide towards what somebody wants to accomplish.
right,
But, if I go in and try to impose myself
mhm,
on somebody, it's just never going to work.
yeah,
It may look great, but I feel like that would be unethical and careless to leave somebody in that type of a
yeah,
situation where
yeah.
it wouldn't be sustainable.
Yeah, that's something I try to really educate people on because
Mhm.
not even just organizers, but there's people out there that are not organizers. They don't do this for a living, and
Mhm.
they just say, "Oh, I can fix that for you. Oh, I can help you with that, or I can do that." And I'm like,
Mhm.
maybe they can, but at the same time, maybe they can't. And if they can't, it's not about you. It's
Mhm.
that they didn't understand how to help you. It's not that you have anything wrong with you. They just didn't understand that what works for them isn't going to work for you. It's just simple as that.
It
Because
is.
people think a lot of people think there's something wrong with them if they're disorganized in whatever
Right.
aspect of
Mhm.
their life. I'm like, really, there isn't. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not an either or. It's not something that's natural to everybody. And I think that's just as humans, are we really meant to have all this stuff? Probably not. So we're just
Oh
all
gosh, no.
adapting, right? we're all trying to figure out what's. I mean, I'm looking over here, my Christmas tree's still up, so and it'll probably be up for another couple of weeks. Not, I am still enjoying it, but
I
yeah,
love leaving it up. I love the lights. I know, really. And it's
yeah,
just like, you know what? Life happens.
hmm,
Um, I probably totally overuse the term punt, but I'm always like, let's punt that. Let's punt that. What can I punt this week?
yeah,
And
yeah,
just
yeah,
prioritizing and realizing that we all have lofty goals and
hmm,
really thinking about how much time it takes to do things and streamlining your tasks for the week and being
hmm,
realistic about the amount of time it takes and the amount of time you have while allowing for life to spill in and fill in
yes,
all the time gaps that you thought you might have to yourself. Something always seems to come in and
of course, yeah.
sideline you a little bit.
Yeah, and that's where, yeah, just being able to let go of that and just know it's just gonna keep going. But if you have these little, if you can find those little routines that could just keep you organized enough, then
Yes.
it's better. That's awesome. So this is great. I'm just looking at the time. We had talked about how long it would take, and I'm surprised I don't see any comments. I see that there's people watching. Hello, everybody, and that's
Exciting.
okay. But it's not me watching. I don't think, I don't think so. Um, the I just completely lost my train of thought. Oh, so tell us about, you have a class that you're going to be running, so you can tell us about that. I am going to pop up your. I never popped up this, but that's okay. I never popped up the name. I usually pop up
Oh,
the
don't
name
worry
of
about
the
it.
show.
Actually, quick update. I think we're not going to run that in
Oh,
January, but I'm going to revamp my classes a little bit and streamline them. So
okay.
I'm going to offer them in the spring now. So I'll report back on that. But
All right.
I am going to offer a couple classes through the Westwood Rec Department in the spring. And so as soon as
Okay.
that is available online, people can go check out the descriptions there. But
Okay.
I'm likely going to run a Let's Get Organized, which is kind of a high level
Mhm.
toolkit for people. And it goes into
Awesome.
things like tips, strategies, realistic things that you can do, like
Mhm.
inventorying your life, inventorying your food, doing a daily sweep, uh,
Mhm.
errand mapping, which is huge, things like that.
Awesome.
Mindful acquisition, which we all need.
Big one.
So
Huge
it kind
one.
of it doesn't drill down super deep because I'm
Yeah.
not a psychologist. I just perform many acts
I
like
just play one on TV. That's what I always say. I'm not a therapist, but I do perform a lot of therapeutic. We're therapeutic. That's what we could say. We're like, like a massage therapist is therapeutic. We're therapeutic, right? In many ways.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And how many
Well, let
times
me
have people told you that? you know,
Many, many. So
yes.
I'll put your website up on this screen, but I'll also share it in the things. But yes, obviously local friends, unless somebody wants to fly to Westwood to take your show or
I
your
know. Well,
class, that'd be good.
well, that's a lot of pressure.
I flew in just for this. No, it's funny.
Absolutely.
And then,
And
oh, go ahead.
oh no, I didn't have a train of thought there.
Oh, and then I'm just going to mention that I have my 7-day challenge always running. I usually bring this up around this time of year because a lot of people have that goal of that resolution of getting organized or a goal. And I like to say it's like weight loss. I mean, you can't really diet. You have to make it a lifestyle change. You're organizing. You have to incorporate it into your life. It can't just be a one and done. It just has to work. So that's my little home program that I have is really about that. It's about letting go of perfectionism and being organized and clean enough, really. So I love that. I'm going to steal it. No, I'm not going to steal it. But
Well, that's okay. Well, I suppose we're
but
all
yeah.
stealing it from Amanda Sullivan.
Yeah, I'm going to grab that book. I'll
It's a
put the
great
link to
book.
that
It's
book
a
in
good
there
read.
too.
It's a quick read too.
Yeah.
I know. It's fun to see what our colleagues are doing out there and
Yeah.
keeping up to
Yeah.
date. I find that a lot of what I've learned was through the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. They are goldmine. Their courses are phenomenal.
Mhm.
Delving into the psychological aspects of so many of these things and
Yeah. I've always
human.
used they have a questionnaire and I always use that with my clients because,
Mhm.
and I'd say that say right to them, if you want to see my results, here they are, because,
I love that.
still have some of this stuff too. It's not perfectionism. I always say like because people, you show up to someone's home or office and they're so embarrassed. I'm like, don't be embarrassed. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. But then they go, oh, your house must be showroom. And I'm like, no,
No,
it's not.
not really, but I can find what I need to do
Exactly.
what I need to do. And
Yes. It's
I know, and,
organized.
and it's true for all of us on any given day. We always get our house company ready when we're hosting a party or something.
Right.
But, most of us would die if people just showed up at our doorstep unexpected.
Exactly.
I'm not
Exactly.
ready.
Yes. Exactly. Oh, it's so funny.
Oh my gosh. This has been so much fun, Joanne.
Yeah, I'm excited. Maybe we'll have to do this again.
I'd love to.
I love I like chatting better than just me sitting here talking on screen. So it's nice. And I know that in somewhere in that whole conversation we had, something will resonate with somebody. They'll be like, oh, it's usually
Hopefully.
the way.
That's the
Yeah,
hope of the dream, right?
exactly. Well, thank you. And yeah, we should have coffee soon.
All
Definitely.
right. Sounds
Interesting.
great.
All right. Thanks.
Take care.
You too.